Donald Trump is whining. President Biden is winning as Donald Trump continues to make post after post how it is impossible for him to post a $464 million bond to stay the enforcement of the New York Attorney General civil fraud judgment against him, where his former chief financial officer also pled guilty to turning the courtroom into a felony crime scene. Donald Trump is saying he doesn't have the bucks. It's impossible. He's also claiming that he won when he lost. You don't get more pathetic than that. And as Donald Trump doesn't have the personal cash, nor does the RNC, nor does the Trump campaign, where seeing that Donald Trump's political action committees are paying more money for legal fees than they're actually taking in, and the Trump campaign raising paltry amounts of money compared to what President Biden is doing. And President Biden put out a statement that Donald Trump is the one spending time in his basement or playing in his own golf competitions, declaring himself the winner of his own tournaments that he throws for himself, while President Biden is rolling up his sleeves in swing states, talking to actual voters. At the same time, we have to discuss what went down in the House of Representatives, where the MAGA Republicans stepped into it for the countless time where these new Democrats, the pro-democracy Democrats who fight back, led by the Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and in the Oversight Committee, Jamie Raskin, with members of Congress like Jasmine Crockett and Moskowitz and Swalwell and Goldman and AOC and others, are pushing back. They basically take over the MAGA Republican hearings and turn it into a way to expose the projection, expose the hypocrisy. And hat tip, by the way, to friend of the MeidasTouch Network, Lev Parnas, who I thought testified with poise, with clarity, and really delivered a searing indictment against the behavior of Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and the collusion with Russia. I think it's also to reflect upon, as that's happening, you got President Biden in swing states, as I mentioned before, talking to the voters. And there is an important message there about, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? And I know with sometimes the collective amnesia that takes place, or with a desire to forget how bad it was when Trump was in office at this exact time. But as I think about 4 years ago, I think about certain clips that I'm going to share with you in just a moment. I think about Donald Trump telling Americans to inject bleach. And by the way, in a recent campaign stop, I believe it was in Houston, President Biden quipped to the audience that Donald Trump must have taken his own advice, injecting that bleach into himself based on his behavior. By the way, I like that President Biden's just going for Donald Trump and is not holding back right now. But I reflect upon almost 4 years to the day when MeidasTouch released its first video. One of the shorts that Brett made, Are You Better Off?, which really put MeidasTouch on the map. And I think that is an important question right now, because we get that reminder now with each date, right? March 20th, March 21st. I like to reflect on, where were we at this time for exactly 4 years ago? And I'm going to want to share that with you here. We've got a lot to discuss, some new orders from the New York Justice and Goron regarding the financial monitor, more stuff from the Manhattan District Attorney, a lot of news. We'll bring it all to you here on the MeidasTouch Podcast. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Brett and Jordy. Brothers, how are you?
Doing great. It really feels like Trump's whole entire world is crashing down, both in the context of the campaign and in his personal life, all of his legal issues. It's all coming home to roost at this point for Donald Trump, and he's in for a very, very, very bad few weeks and few months. And I really do believe at this point, things are just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse for him. As people say, Jordy, We've entered the find out phase, right? We've entered the find out stage, and that's what Donald Trump is in. And, you see Letitia James in New York. She's getting ready to seize properties of Donald Trump as Donald Trump complains that it's impossible for him to pay this bond. You see Republicans increasingly desperate, freaking out, and just like almost governing in a way and putting forth policies as if they just completely want to lose the election. It's completely bizarre. We had that hearing, and I'm excited to show some clips, but I'll preview it briefly right here. James Comer held a hearing. It's one of these impeachment hearings, and it was to try to hurt President Biden. That was theoretically the goal of this hearing. And
the goal was to try to impeach Biden, right? Like go after.
Yes. Go. Yeah, it's impeach Biden. That's their whole thing. But they haven't come up with any evidence, because the real goal is let's try to dirty up Biden and spread this Russian disinformation to try to make it seem like Biden, Trump, same thing, but both criminals. No. Actually, one guy's just a really good guy who works hard for the country, and the other guy's a maniac who has all these criminal counts against him and is just like a complete and utter disaster. But what happened? At his own hearing, you have Trump and the GOP get implicated in numerous potential crimes, extortion schemes. The firsthand witness who was there revealed that they were directly working with Russia and Russian agents to try to take down an American president. I mean, it's just been one disaster after disaster for these people.
And Brett, you had Democratic Congressmember Jared Moskowitz say, "Look, MAGA Republicans, let me help you out. I know you're too afraid to introduce a vote to impeach President Biden. Why don't I do it for you? And let me see what your response is." And so Moskowitz goes, "All right, I'm voting to impeach President Biden. Any one of you want to
I'm putting forward a motion right now.
Any of you want to vote on it?" And then they don't. And he goes, "Exactly. Instead, you want, because you don't have the evidence for it. Instead, you want to go on Fox and Newsmax and spread your lies." We'll show you that clip a little bit later as well. Jordy.
These Republicans, folks, they are professional rake steppers. We love that phrase here, and they continue to step in it time and time again. And look, I've said this on the show before, and I genuinely mean it. The worst thing that happened to this MAGA Congress is that they got the majority. They've done everything in their power to put themselves in the position where when it comes time for re-election, that they're going to be back in the minority so they could fundraise and complain that they can't pass anything because they don't have the power to. The fact that they do have the power to actually pass real legislation and are failing miserably at doing so in front of the entire world, not just America, the world is watching. It speaks volumes to what this modern day Republican Party has become, and it is pathetic.
And Jordy, they have to do these gimmicks, right? Normally there's omnibus spending bills to fund the government, because MAGA Republicans are so co-opted by these extreme elements. They can't even call it they can't even do an omnibus. So now they're like, we're going to do a minibus. I'm like, we're going to do a minibus, and we're going to do before the minibus, they did staggered CRs, just making stuff up. We're going to stagger continuing resolutions. First, we're going to fund these 3 departments on this arbitrary date, and then we're going to fund the others through this arbitrary date, just so we create random deadlines for ourselves, because we're just trying to procrastinate this and kick the can down the road. And then now they're like, we're going to do a minibus. And now I'm asking you, Brett, and others, I'm like, what's a minibus? Okay. I've never heard of such a minibus. All of a sudden this terminology is you're gonna sort of fund the government and not deal with a lot of thing else. And then the right-wing so-called Freedom Caucus that's now kicked out Ken Buck, because Ken Buck, who's actually very conservative, refused to be a MAGA Republican stooge. And he's like, all right, this is insanity. I am leaving. They're like, we're going to protest the minibus. And they just fight each other. But we'll get into more of that in a bit. But 4 years ago.
Wow, is that a sound effect, or it sounds like wow, that's incredible.
4 years ago, Donald Trump posted this on his on when it was called Twitter. Donald Trump wrote, "Hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin taken together have a real chance to be one of the biggest game changers in the history of medicine. The FDA has moved mountains. Thank you. Hopefully, they will both. H works better with A. International Journal of Antimicrobial Agents, ... Well, that's not true. That was false information about COVID. We now know from actual medical studies that while the vaccine was safe, while MAGA Republicans were trying to undermine that, nearly 17,000 people may have died from hydroxychloroquine. And not only that, but if we take a look back 4 years ago to this day, 4 years ago, this is when Donald Trump was holding these press conferences every single day, not really letting the experts do what experts do, because part of Donald Trump's malignant narcissism is to push aside the experts. And if they get more attention than him, Trump views that as a threat to his own ego. I mean, how weird and disgusting is that? But here was the press conference that Donald Trump held. And I think this was right around the time, Brett, you, me, Jordy, we were texting each other where we're like, we need to do something. Like, oh my God, like we started doing things before this, but I think this was one of the moments in particular was like, whoa, like I just got to drop everything I'm doing in life right now and somehow utilize our skills to address this. Here, play this press conference from exactly 4 years ago.
What happens? We have nothing to lose. You know the expression? What the hell do you have to lose? Okay?
So what do you say to Americans who are nearly 200? I'll just follow up.
John,
Nearly
go
200
ahead.
dead. What do you say to the Americans who are scared, though? I guess nearly 200 dead, 14,000 who are sick, millions, as you witnessed, who are scared right now. What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Go ahead. I think
I
it's a very nasty question, and I think it's a very bad signal that you're putting out to the American people. The American people are looking for answers, and they're looking for hope. And you're doing sensationalism, and the same with NBC and Comcast. I don't call it Comcast. I call it Concast. Let me just for whom you work. Let me just tell you something. That's really bad reporting, and you ought to get back to reporting instead of sensationalism.
And I mean this sincerely, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, how do you want that? How do you want that? He starts off by saying, what the hell do you have to lose? I mean, think about just leaders from the past, American leaders. Like, imagine if FDR, during World War II said, what the hell do we have to lose? You're asking stupid questions right there. What the hell do we have to lose? He then says, you're a bad reporter. You ask nasty questions. Americans just want hope. By the way, a little bit earlier than that, that's when Donald Trump is saying, like a miracle, it's all going to go away. Like a miracle, let's hope that it all goes away. And then he says, the nickname I'm giving you, the nickname I give to NBC and Comcast, I call it Concast. And that's how Donald Trump dealt with this thing each and every day, or I should say, did not deal with a serious international medical crisis. And had there been somebody competent in power at that time, I think the results would have been very, very different. And that is not how leadership is supposed to be as well. I want to show the new ad by President Biden. I
want to comment on that first, because I think he says something that's very revealing too, where he says the American people want hope. It shows you that his entire presidency was based on BSing people, and the entire way that he deals with everything is by BSing people. The American people at that time were not looking for hope. They were looking for honesty. They were looking for data. They were looking for facts. And we learned after that moment that Donald Trump knew everything about the coronavirus from as early as January of that year, maybe even before. He had given that interview with, I think it was Bob Woodward, in either January or early February, where he described how deadly COVID was, how it kills people via the air. He knew what the problem was. He just wanted to hide it from the American people. And his entire thing was just name calling, right? How does he deal with the campaigns? He name calls, right? How does he deal with foreign leaders? He name calls. How did he deal with COVID? He just name calls. He thinks that that is an effective strategy. And you could even look at the writings that he had around this time when he addressed the country. Do you guys remember this? Do you guys remember when he had the speech he was going to give about the coronavirus? And I'm showing the picture right here. He crossed off the word coronavirus to write Chinese virus. To Donald Trump, that's like, oh, problem solved. I called it the Chinese virus. It's not my fault anymore. Not my job. That's how he handles every crisis. And this was finally a crisis that he cannot BS his way out of. You cannot BS your way out of a pandemic that is killing thousands and thousands of people every single day. Sorry, Ben.
No, but I think a lot of the things you say are very logical there. But let me disagree with this point. He did BS his way out of it with the right-wing propaganda like Fox and other propaganda networks. They convinced a huge amount of the population, despite the fact that there was over 1 million deaths, that this very serious crisis was actually a hoax. There's a huge portion of our population that to this day still believes that with everything that happened. The same way that a huge portion of our population, despite all of the evidence and facts to the contrary, will tell you that the election was stolen in 2020, despite Donald Trump losing all of his federal cases, over 60 federal cases in front of judges who he appointed, despite Donald Trump's attorney general, Bill Barr, saying that there was no fraud in the entire Department of Justice under Donald Trump, saying there was no fraud. To overturn the results of the election. Trump hired 2 forensic companies to actually do studies. He paid each of them close to $1 million. Their studies came back that there was no fraud capable of overturning the 2020 election. All of Donald Trump's personal lawyers, other than Giuliani, anyone who was a serious lawyer, told him that it was a free and fair election, and Trump knows it was a free and fair election. Nonetheless, through a right-wing propaganda machine, they convinced a huge portion of the country. So, Brett, it goes back to something else you said there that, again, I think what you said is very logical, but I also disagree with it. You said that
he lost. He lost the election, right? He lost the election. He's going to lose the election again. People understand these facts, and the reason why
people don't understand these facts, though,
the vast amount of the American people do, I believe. The right wing,
I agree with you.
In the right wing echo chamber do not, and those people have been irreparably harmed by this man. And you have these right wing networks that have put all this toxic info out there and have killed people. Frankly, Donald Trump has resulted in lots of deaths in this country, as has this right-wing media ecosystem. But I think like the average American voter, the person who is voting on these issues, I think that year especially, I think if Donald Trump handled it even remotely competently, if Donald Trump was like, I'm going to take this seriously, here's the facts, here's how we're going to solve this thing, I think the election results could have actually been a lot different that year. But I think people weren't buying Donald Trump's BS while they were watching their parents die, while they were watching their friends die. And so that's kind of the nuance that I would say to kind of counter you ever so slightly.
No, we're saying the same thing, and I agree with you. But
yeah.
What I'm trying to focus on is how is there a group of 50 to 60 to potentially 70 million Americans who are willing to believe the biggest of lies? And what I want to do in that analysis, like a scientist, I want to use my scalpel to try to identify what it is. And when I take that scalpel, the part, Brett, and I'm glad we're having this debate, because it's a friendly one where we both ultimately, I think, agree on the outcome here.
Oh, totally.
See, I think that the American people actually do want hope. What they believe, though, is that our leaders are providing accurate data and will alert them to both the hope, if it's consistent with data, but also warn people and protect them. That social contract has been ripped to shreds by MAGA Republicans. And what's been pumped out for really the first time in American history is this Kim Jong-un North Korean style propaganda. Life is hard. If you just think about it like this, and there's great things about life and, family and hobbies and friends and doing things that are fulfilling and enjoying things. Life is great, but life is also very hard and challenging. And it's filled with loss sometimes. It's filled with struggle sometimes, right? There's difficulty. So if you were to ask American people just generally, how are you feeling today? Do you think that there are a lot of people, and I say this seriously, who would say, I am so very happy today. Thank you very much. I am so happy. I think people will say, good, I'm good. But embedded in that good is a lot of complex feelings. And I think the importance of leadership is to have empathy and to address those complex feelings that people experience with the seriousness with which it deserves. And the problem and why propaganda is so easy is that when people are filled with complex emotions and have so many things weighing on their time and they're just trying to exist, it could be easy for those purveyors of big lies to be predatory and to look at people who are going through that and to sell them a bill of goods. In comes Donald Trump, whose entire career has been selling people a bill of goods. One of the biggest fraudsters, not just in the history of America, but perhaps in the history of mankind, someone who was born with a golden spoon in his mouth, who bankrupted everything, lied, screwed people over more than anybody, frankly, who's ever existed. And he was able to identify this kind of vulnerability. And rather than a campaign of kind of hope, but bringing people up together, Donald Trump said, this is my mark. He found that in a group of Americans. He found that in the Republican Party. And I think that's what we're seeing today. And so, Brett, you're so right, but I think it's important how we understand these issues in order to combat it. Can we share, though, right now, this ad that President Biden put out? Because I think it is very, very powerful. If we've got it, let's play it.
And then I see the disinfectant. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside?
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your response to this crisis?
I'd rate it a 10. I think we've done a great job.
What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say. Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all. We're doing, I think, really, really well.
I'll tell you what. How? 1,000 Americans are dying a day. They are dying. That's true. And it is what it is.
And that expression, it is what it is. Also, 4 years ago, basically to the day, the Dow was in free fall, closing at 19,183 on March 20th. And by the way, today it closed at a record high of 39,781. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ also hit new records. But setting aside the performance of the stock market, you've got President Biden in Arizona talking about bringing billions of dollars from the CHIPS Act to Arizona, investments in Intel. And then on the other hand, you have Donald Trump whining about it is impossible for him to pay or secure a surety bond in a case where he was found liable for fraud, as he's claiming absolute immunity in a case where he made hush money payments to an adult film star while his third wife had just given birth, which Trump wanted to cover up. As President Biden says, don't compare me to the Almighty, compare me to the alternative. And when we look about the alternatives today, I showed you those clips of Donald Trump back from 2020. He's the same person. I know the media narratives, whether it's Axios or New York Times or Politico, they want to give the headlines, oh, it's a more mature campaign. Oh, he's not. He's toning down the language about January 6th. He isn't. You saw Trump 4 years ago. Let me show you Trump last weekend. Play this clip.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the horribly and unfairly treated January 6th hostages.
Well, thank you very much. And you see the spirit from the hostages, and that's what they are, as hostages. They've been treated terribly and very unfairly, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And we're going to be working on that soon as the first day we get into office. We're going to save our country, and we're going to work with the people to treat those unbelievable patriots, and they were unbelievable patriots and are. You see the spirit just cheering, they're cheering while they're doing that, and they did that in prison, and it's a disgrace in my opinion.
We continue to expand the MeidasTouch Network. That speaks for itself, by the way, of how horrific that is. We continue to expand the MeidasTouch Network and our offerings here thanks to your support as we continue to grow. You're aware of some of the new YouTube channels that we've created formal partnerships with. Of course, there's the Tennessee Brando channel. Make sure you go and subscribe to the Tennessee Brando YouTube channel for his unique hot takes. Also, we've got Adam Mockler's channel from Mockler Media. Adam is our Gen Z voice. It's great to be partnered with Adam Mockler. Make sure you subscribe there. And a new offering here on the MeidasTouch Network, as all we do a lot of politics. Don't get me wrong. We're going to keep on doing that. But I'm also proud to announce True Crime MTN. We've partnered with David Arenberg, who you all know from his hot takes here on the MeidasTouch Network. David Arenberg is going to be leading True Crime MTN. That's where we'll be able to give you our hot takes led by David on legal issues that don't touch upon politics per se. So if you wanted to hear hot takes about other legal cases, other trials, and get a perspective there, make sure you go now and subscribe to True Crime MTN. A little bit later in the show, we're going to talk about a movie that we are executive producing here called Against All Enemies. And I am excited to announce our official partnership with the movie Against All Enemies. You all know Ken Harborough here, who does the hot takes with us. We're executive producing this film with him. It's gotten great reviews overseas. I want to talk about that. Thank you all, though, for helping us build this network so we can do these things brick by brick. One of the ways you help us out is at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Another way you help us out is by supporting our pro-democracy sponsors. Let's take our first break of the show.
Listen, these days can get tough, whether it's stressing about the news or dealing with our personal lives, our families, our jobs. We all need a way to wind down. I feel like I've finally found a product that helps calm my nerves after a long day, and it's called Soul. This podcast is sponsored by Soul. Did you know you can now buy hemp-derived THC products in all 50 states? With Soul, you can. Soul was founded 5 years ago by brother and sister duo Mike and Angie Lee. Mike is a former world-ranked professional boxer, and Angie is an author and professional speaker who had the desire to create natural alternatives to medication that tackle problems they deal with themselves, like sleeplessness, anxiety, focus, and pain. Their brand new out-of-office gummies contain hemp-derived THC and CBD to help get that much-needed me time at the end of the day or during the day. Whenever you need it, Soul is there. How could Soul send you THC products no matter where in the US you live? Because of the 2018 Farm Bill, hemp-derived THC is now legal and accessible nationwide. With out-of-office hemp-derived THC, Soul offers a variety of gummies that help get you buzzed, not blitzed, with a predictable micro-dosed euphoria. Finally being able to relax after a hectic day is life-changing. I never thought a gummy could have such a big impact on my stress levels, and it's great to have a way to chill out with any of the negative health implications of, like eating your feelings or having a drink. The Soul team suggests you start by eating 1/2 to 1 gummy, then wait around 45 minutes to an hour to start feeling the effects. Then you could feel that warm, fuzzy, euphoric, microdosed feeling while you're still able to be yourself. So go for a jog, watch your favorite show, catch up on some emails, or whatever else floats your boat. And that's not all Soul's got. Whether you're looking for a sleep aid, enhanced focus, or pain relief, Soul has all your wellness needs covered. And Soul's products are grown right here in the USA, organically farmed and gluten-free. So give Soul a try. Head to getsoul.com and use code MEIDAS for 30% off your order. That's 30% off your order using code MEIDAS. One last time, getsoul.com and code MEIDAS, MEIDAS, for 30% off. Hey, I need to tell you all about my new favorite pair of jeans, and that's the Perfect Jean. Today's sponsor, the Perfect Jean, finally solved all of your denim difficulties. They make great-looking, perfect-fitting jeans that are just as comfortable as sweatpants. Look, I tried them. I promise they are as good as advertised. The secret, a special denim fabric that's super soft and has the perfect amount of stretch, so you could squat, do yoga, or just sit around all day in them without ever wanting to take them off. They make 6 fits from skinny to thick, and have a waist from 26 to 50 and lengths from 26 to 38. Big boys, short kings, tall dudes, and all the rest, they got you. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their order plus free shipping at theperfectgene.nyc or Google The Perfect Gene and use code MeidasTouch15 for 15% off. Seriously, y'all, The Perfect Gene is hands down my most comfortable pair of jeans I have ever owned. I could actually move around in them and they fit great too. I cannot recommend these enough. It's finally time to stop crushing your groin in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectgene.nyc. Our listeners get 15% off your first order plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use code MeidasTouch15 at checkout. That's MEIDAS15. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectgene.nyc with promo code MeidasTouch15. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Forget your khakis and get The Perfect Gene.
Let's go. See, folks, Brett, he was a little self-conscious doing the ad reads when we first started. That's why Ben and I would always do them. But then all of a sudden, Brett came out of nowhere and did one day and crushed it. And then he's like, hey, I could do more of these. So now Brett gets to continue to crush doing all of the ad reads. But seriously, Brett, great job. Love the way you do them. And shout out to our sponsors. I spend a lot of our days, guys, you brothers know this, talking to these sponsors and trying to find what are cool, hip new brands that we could get to our audience with awesome discounts. Honestly, Soul is super legit. Go check them out right now. The link's in the description of the YouTube and the audio. And The Perfect Gene is The Perfect Gene. So definitely check that out as well. It helps the show, helps you guys too. We style you guys up. Y'all get some good gummies out of it. It's a fun win-win for everybody. Just let them know we sent you.
Let me show you a big point of contrast between the pro-democracy community embodied in Democrats and the Republican Party now embodied in MAGA from news that was reported earlier in the day with embattled, as they like to call him, or like to call him, corrupt criminal. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez announced that he won't be running in the Democratic primary, but doesn't rule out an independent bid. He was running against some prominent New Jersey Democrats, First Lady Tammy Murphy and Representative Andy Kim. And we've had Andy Kim on the MeidasTouch Network. I really enjoyed that interview, and I would love the opportunity to interview Tammy Murphy also if anybody wants to let her know that, because I'd love to say what's up there. Democrats pushed out Bob Menendez. There is no home for people like Bob Menendez in the Democratic Party. On the contrary, in the MAGA Republican Party, that's how you rise to the top. If you behave like that, the reward structure actually favors you. For a second, do you think that if Bob Menendez was a Republican, that this would have any impact on him whatsoever? It would probably make him more popular. It would all of the Republicans.
Dude, he'd be the coolest person in the GOP. Gold bars? Are you kidding me? That's like right up the GOP's comic book villain alley.
I mean, I saw Lena Haba wearing this weekend with the MAGA rapper. Forgacio Blow, however you say the guy's name. People try to correct me. I don't care. For Jadio Blow, I don't know what the guy's name is, but she has the MAGA, like a fake MAGA ring and a big Trump fake MAGA necklace, which is just so odd. But you're right, Jordy. I mean, this is just not normal political times. And we've talked about that here, how it's pro-democracy Democrats and Republicans, mainstream and independents under the pro-democracy banner. And then you have MAGA. In a little bit, Brett will talk about the Joe-mentum taking place right now. But we've seen it with the actual data. We know when you go back and you look at even some of the recent races that are taking place, whether it's like the Florida primary or blood red Kansas. I mean, Donald Trump wasn't clearing 75% of the Republican vote in blood red Kansas. You had Nikki Haley in the recent Florida primary getting more than 200,000 votes, over 15% and I know all the media is like, well, this one's not a closed one. I guess they are. Florida was a closed primary, just Republicans, and you had over 200,000 votes against Donald Trump, Brett.
She's not even in the race. I mean, she's literally not even in the race, and she's still accruing all of these votes in these states. It shows you that Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble here, huh?
And well, I mean, just again, it was like when everybody wanted to give me the polls with the red wave, and what we were talking about here on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm like, look, okay, like I get that polls have some data point or whatever. But I like the data points that I care about is the actual data. And at that point in time, why we were confident that there was not a red wave at that time is we were looking at all the early vote returns and we were seeing what was actually happening with actual voters. So once again, I just find it, and again, the polls are turning right now. And again, Brett will talk about it a little bit. I don't want to get fixated on polls, but the polls are turning now in Joe Biden's favor. But I want to act like that's not the case, okay? I almost want to pretend that's not happening. But the data that we see is always reflective of this issue that on election day, everyone's going to be like, how did we not see this coming? You did. It was right. It was staring you right in the face with every primary that there was, somewhere between 15 to 25% of Republicans in closed primaries voting against Donald Trump. The same type of narrative you were trying to create, media, against President Biden, but couldn't, actually is happening with Donald Trump, and then you're not reporting about it. But, thankfully we're reporting about it here. Let's talk about what went down in Congress, and then, Brett, I'm going to pass it to you on what's President Biden doing. Tell me about the Joe-mentum. Tell me about what's going on. But first, let's just do a brief recap of the congressional hearings, just to remind everybody what is going on. Hunter Biden nudes. Hunter Biden got a loan from Joe Biden in 2018, $4,000. We should apparently forget about Kushner getting $3 billion when Kushner actually had a position of power, being appointed by Donald Trump, notwithstanding not being able to get a security clearance. By the way, Trump wouldn't be able to get a security clearance right now. I mean, or back then. So just think about it like that. Jared Kushner didn't get a security clearance. Trump would not be. Trump is so financially compromised. Not only would he fail a security clearance, if security clearances had a FICO score, Trump would have like a 100. Like he would have if security clearance had rankings like that, Trump's security FICO would be like 50. It would be like 50, by the way. But rather than MAGA Republicans talk about, actual billion-dollar corruption or even million-dollar corruption, they're focused on Hunter Biden's penis. So there was another hearing that was taking place where the MAGA Republicans called in, these people who acted like they were like business partners or like wanted to work with Hunter, and Hunter didn't really want to work with them. And one of them was like a guest at Donald Trump's in the 2020 debate, and like also was like with Mark Meadows in 2020, like wearing like a ski mask, like randomly, like just some very bizarre characters. The other witness, this guy Galanis, was literally in prison. There he is right there. He had like ripped off pension funds for like tens of millions of dollars. And like, these are the people that Republicans are calling. Democrats called Lev Parnas, who absolutely crushed it. But my favorite moment of this entire hearing was what we talked about at the top of the show, Congress member Jared Moskowitz, without even characterizing it because it's just too good. Let's play that clip.
Well, I'm just here to help him. Right. And so I just think we should do it today. Let's just call for it. I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman. I want to help you out. You can second it. Right. Like, make the motion to impeach President Biden. Go ahead. It's your turn. You second it. No, nothing. OK, we got nothing. So I want to, with my last couple minutes, show the American people that they're never going to impeach Joe Biden. It's never going to happen because they don't have the evidence. OK, this is a show. It's all fake. They just want to do these hearings. It's not leading to impeachment. They're lying to their base on Newsmax and Fox, leading these people to believe that they're going to eventually impeach the president. It's not going to happen at all, ever, period. They don't even have the votes, even if they had it in committee. They don't have the votes on the floor. They know that. They got members resigning rather than taking a vote on the fake faux impeachment. Just ask Ken Buck, who said the speaker ain't going to get me to take an unconstitutional impeachment vote. I mean, boy.
I was always taught that a good trial lawyer never asks a question that they don't know the answer to. There, Jared Moskowitz knew the answer to the question. That's why he asked it. He knew that they were not going to impeach President Biden. when he gave them the opportunity to do it. It was such a brilliant move. And then I want to give a hat tip to friend of the podcast, Lev Parnas, who, has worked with MeidasTouch before. He's a good friend of mine. And I thought he was poised. I thought he was collected. And I thought that he was just devastating to the MAGA Republicans. Let's just play this one clip of Lev Parnas.
From shortly after my arrest on October 9, 2019 to now, I have been trying to share the irrefutable truth with you. The American people have been lied to by Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and various cohorts of individuals in government and media positions. They created falsehoods to serve their own interests, knowing it would undermine the strength of our nation. From November 2018 to October 2019, I was a key participant and a witness to numerous efforts to prove that Joe and Hunter Biden were linked to corruption in Ukraine. Rudy Giuliani, on behalf of then President Donald Trump, tasked me with a mission to travel the globe, finding dirt on the Bidens so that an array of networks could spread misinformation about them, thus securing the 2020 election for Donald J. Trump.
Powerful, powerful stuff. And Brett, as that was what was going on in the Oversight Committee, the Republicans, through a study group, was on an election year, was preparing their plan, their budget. Tell us about it.
Well, you had for all this time, Ben, you had President Biden calling it out at the State of the Union. You remember the previous State of the Union, he got them all the Republicans to agree, we're not going to cut Social Security and Medicare. And then every time he calls them out for it, he called them out at this State of the Union as well. They act so offended. Like, I can't believe that President Biden, how dare you accuse us of coming for Social Security and Medicare? And then inevitably their budget comes out, or their proposals come out. And guess what? They're doing exactly that. And this is one of the most brazen budget proposals that I have seen from the Republican Party in a long, long time. They announced this plan, the Republican Study Committee. And I want to just give you a bit of a sense of how large the Republican Study Committee is. This isn't some fringe group. This consists of more than 80% of the members of the House Republicans, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, including all the leadership of the House Republicans. This is a large and influential group. It's most of the Republican Party. And what does this budget plan for 2025 that they put forward do? Well, it pushes to cut Social Security. It demands raising the age limits, raising the age to receive Social Security. It outlines major cuts in Medicare. The plan would also roll back the Affordable Care Act. All those provisions in the Affordable Care Act that allow people to stay on their parents' plan until 26. I know that was very important for me as I was growing up, incredibly important. Well, they want to get rid of that. They want to gut the Affordable Care Act. It also endorses this Life at Conception Act, and they did not make any exceptions for IVF. So the net result of them, if they were to pass this, would also be that IVF would be banned nationwide across the country, the same way that you had IVF going away in the state of Alabama. Because when you don't allow for that exception, inevitably you are criminalizing that procedure by saying that frozen embryos are children and that's what they want to do. Now, how's this for hypocrisy? It also calls for the defunding of local police departments. It's just the most absurd budget plan ever, and so brazen by these House Republicans. And this is most of it, right? You think but are they doing anything for tax credits for, working people, or are they going to do anything for childcare? Maybe they'll help with healthcare. No, 80+% of the budget goes to cutting these programs that people rely upon. So when they try to act what are you talking about? We're cutting Social Security. It's in writing. And if you want to read the plan, by the way, we have an article about this up on MeidasTouch.com right now. And if you go into the article in the first sentence, we link to the actual plan so you could read it in their own words. And I recommend you do that. And I recommend you send it to people if they go, what are you talking about? They wouldn't do that. Okay, well, here is the plan in their own words. We all remember, by the way, President Biden at the State of the Union, where he says, if anyone here tries to cut Social Security or Medicare or raise the retirement age, I will stop them. And so what did the House Republicans do? They go, okay, we're going to try. We're going to try. That's our plan. We're going to put it in writing, and we're going to do it in an election year. I mean, let's say it's a great plan. It's a great plan. I'm going to be honest with you, brothers. It's a great plan if you want to get blown out in elections. That's the only thing that I could possibly think, because this thing is just absolutely horrendous, Ben.
Well, I think it's beyond horrendous. And as I said, I don't really want to focus on the polls, although I'll just say this without going through all of them. On the aggregate now, it's all trending in President Biden's, or a lot of them are trending in President Biden's direction. And the only reason why I even point that out is because there's all this narrative about polling out there. But what I'm more interested in is talking about like what President Biden is doing to connect with people. I mean, the thing about a campaign, right? And this is the fundamental difference. You have to work. Like, I know Donald Trump hasn't put in work his entire life and is so entitled, but what President Biden recognizes is that he has a lot of work to do. That's okay. You need to win over voters. And going back to what I said at the outset of the show about people having complex emotions about the current situation, I think that will always exist. And so what you have to explain to voters, though, and you have to reach out and you have to say, look, here's what I'm going to do. I recognize what you're going through. I understand what you're going through. Here are my plans to try to make your life better. And here's what I've already done. And here are the plans.
This is why, Ben, by the way, whenever you see anybody begin their sentence about the election, their prediction for the election by saying, if the election were held today, it's not. The election's not being held today.
The best way to think about that is I went to a Clippers game for the first time last Sunday. And hypothetically, I don't know if this is true, so I don't want to be fact-checked. The Clippers scored the first point of the game. And I said, if the game was called today, the Clippers are the winners. And the Clippers played the Hawks. On paper, the Clippers should have won. The Clippers lost by like 30. They lost by 25 when you go through all four quarters. So it's called a campaign for a reason. It's not called it's not called it's not called it's called a campaign. You have to go. You like that, right? Like Yogi Berra over here. You have to go through the whole thing, and you have to win over voters. So if Biden's down in this state because these workers think that he needs to go there and he needs to talk to the workers and he needs to explain what his policies are, and the workers can be like, you know what? We appreciate that you've been by our side. We appreciate that you've submitted plans, but in reality, we want the guy who goes, you know what I'd rather be? I would rather be electrocuted than eaten by sharks. That's what I would. And if a worker goes, you know what? That Trump who talks about he'd rather be electrocuted, he loves the January 6th insurrectionists, he loves getting big letters from Kim Jong-un. And if ultimately the worker's like, well, President Biden talked about raising our wages and lowering the cost of insulin. And if the worker goes, you know what? I want the Trump guy, give them the data and let them make that decision. But ultimately, I think what President Biden recognizes, he's going to go into these towns and areas and he's going to win over voters. He won over the Steelworkers Union. They endorsed Biden. And we reported earlier this week that Steelworkers Union president said a Biden endorsement was likely. Now it's official. I think we have the announcement video. Let's play it.
Joe Biden is the most pro-union president that I've ever seen.
He is definitely for the middle class, always pro-union.
Standing with union people on the front line. I believe that President Biden believes in all of us.
I support Joe Biden because he is interested in people like me having a unionized job.
President Biden has protected retirement securities for seniors like me.
Not only did President Biden protect the pensions at my plant, he was able to protect the pensions for over 120,000 steelworker members.
President Biden and his policies brought over 800,000 manufacturing jobs back. So the infrastructure bill and the CHIPS and Science Act is going to be huge.
He signed a once-in-a-generation infrastructure law that keeps my plant running.
He supports unions, and now I got a voice in my workplace.
Joe Biden believes in us, and we believe in him.
That's why I'm with Joe.
I'm with Joe.
I'm with Joe.
I'm with Joe.
You got to earn votes. President Biden recognizes you got to earn trust. You got to earn votes. And that's exactly what he is doing. I want to again remind everybody about some of our great new YouTube offerings. We've got the Tennessee Brando YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe there. Brando's on his way to 200,000 subs since we've worked with him and partnered with him there.
And Brando.
Adam Mockler about to hit 100,000 subs right there. Let's get Mockler over that 100,000.
In a world of MAGAs, Ben, be a Mockler. Go subscribe to Adam Mockler's channel.
Yeah, well, I want to say with MAGAs, be a world of Mocklers out there. Mockler represents Gen Z right there, and everyone has been saying you need a Gen Z, leader. So our partnership with Mockler, we're going to have more Gen Z voices on his channel as well. And then, of course, if you wanted to get some hot takes that are just related to some other legal issues that aren't necessarily political in nature, go to True Crime MTN, subscribe to that channel. It just launched. So let's see if
YouTube.com/True Crime MTN. That's how you get there to subscribe.
Search it on YouTube right there. All right. And when we come back, we've got a lot to discuss, a lot of court case developments that I'll break down. Monday's the last day for Donald Trump. That's D-Day, not for Donald, as Michael Popak would say. And New York Attorney General Letitia James has basically already established functional liens on Donald Trump's Westchester Golf Resort and the 7 acres property. She'll be ready to seize that property on Monday if he can post a bond. We'll be right back after our last quick break of the show. Have you heard of Bond Charge? Bond Charge is a holistic wellness brand with a huge range of evidence-based products to optimize your life in every way. Founded on science and inspired by nature, all Bond Charge products adopt ancestral ways of living in our modern world. Their extensive range of premium wellness products help you sleep better, perform better, have more energy, recover faster, balance hormones, reduce inflammation. The list is endless. But my favorite product from Bond Charge is their infrared sauna blanket. The infrared sauna blanket works wonders. It has for me, and I know it will for you as well. The sauna blanket works by raising heart rate to that of physical exercise, so it burns calories while you relax. You can burn up to 600 calories in just one session. Sweating helps flush out those heavy metals and other toxins, and the infrared heat elevates your heart rate while relaxing, which releases endorphins and can leave you feeling euphoric after your session. It works by using infrared light, which heats the body directly rather than the air around you like a traditional sauna. This means you get the same benefits at a lower heat. You also do not need to have your head in the heat like a traditional sauna. It's so easy to set up. It takes less than a minute to set up, in fact, and it heats up rapidly. Enjoy a session for 30 to 40 minutes while relaxing, reading, watching TV, meditating, whatever you'd like. I've tried other products, but they simply don't work nearly as well as Bond Charge. Bond Charge infrared sauna is easy to clean up. It heats up quickly. It's super simple to use, and the lightweight design makes it perfect. Bond Charge ships worldwide in rapid time and has free shipping on every sauna blanket with no hidden costs. And it comes with a 12-month warranty. So here's what you got to do. Go to bondcharge.com/Meidas and use the coupon code Meidas, M-E-I-D-A-S, to save 15%. That's BONCHARGE.com/Meidas and use the coupon code Meidas to save 15%. You all know I love math, right? So let's do some quick math. The less your business spends on operations, on multiple systems, on delivering your product or service, the more margin you have and the more money you keep. But with higher expenses on materials, employees, distribution, and borrowing, everything costs more. So to reduce the headaches, smart businesses are graduating to NetSuite by Oracle, as we did at MeidasTouch. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one platform and one source of truth. Truth is golden. With NetSuite, you reduce IT costs because NetSuite lives in the cloud with no hardware required, accessed from anywhere. You cut the cost of maintaining multiple systems because you've got one unified business management suite. You improve efficiency by bringing all your major business processes into one platform, slashing manual tasks and errors. Slash it. Over 37,000 companies have already made the move, including ours. So do the math. See how you'll profit with NetSuite. Businesses need to operate as efficiently as possible, so you'd be wise to find proven ways to cut costs and boost performance at the same time. Now, through April 15th, NetSuite is offering a one-of-a-kind flexible financing program. So head to netsuite.com/Meidas. That's netsuite.com/Meidas. One more time, it's netsuite.com/Meidas.
Let's
Jordy.
go. Shout out Bond Charge. Shout out NetSuite. Brett, you love Bond Charge.
Yeah, I love Bond Charge. I told you I used to go pre-Bond Charge. Literally, there's a sauna place, and I used to like treat myself once a year to go to this sauna blanket place. And now I get to weekly in my own home use the Bond Charge, and it's like I get to have my own personal spa day every single week with Bond Charge, and it's like the best. Especially like when you have to tune out, everything, and you just want to like relax and feel good. Like I can go on for hours.
Yes, absolutely. And NetSuite is friggin' amazing. I mean, they sponsor one of the segments on the show that we do monthly. So do me a favor, go click the NetSuite link, go click the Bond Charge link, and just check them out. If you're feeling it, perfect. If not, no worries. But look, we work on this for you guys specifically. So do me a favor, click on that NetSuite link right now.
Time for our court roundup. The Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg clapped back at Donald Trump in a new filing earlier today. After a more thorough review of about 119,000 pages of discovery that was turned over only recently, the Manhattan District Attorney says that there are fewer than 270 documents that may have any relevance at all to the Manhattan District Attorney criminal case against Donald Trump. You will recall that Judge Merchan adjourned the case, which was currently set for trial what would have been this upcoming Monday, March 25th. It's now scheduled for April 15th, mid-April, and Alvin Bragg says there's really no reason why there should be any more delay. Any delay at all has been caused, according to the motion filed by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg by Donald Trump, first requesting these records back in January of 2024 when he could have done so earlier. What Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg essentially alleges is that Trump tried to create this discovery controversy, knowing that these documents may be returned close to the trial date and that Donald Trump has enough time to now review these records. We will keep you posted about what's happening with that hearing when we learn more earlier in the day as well. As we've previously talked about on this episode, New York Attorney General Letitia James is preparing to seize the Donald Trump various properties that are located in New York. She essentially filed liens or registered the $464 million judgment against Donald Trump in Westchester County. That is the home of the Seven Springs property of Donald Trump, or Trump Golf Westchester. That also has about 212 acres of dense woods and rolling hills. As of this recording, Donald Trump has not yet been able to secure a bond, and the appellate division has not yet ruled on Donald Trump's request to stay enforcement of the judgment against him. And earlier in the week, New York Attorney General Letitia James fired back, just as we predicted, in a reply, basically saying, first and foremost, Donald Trump's reply is basically a new motion, adding all of this new data, and should be stricken. Also, Donald Trump has his general counsel as well as an expert who testified in the underlying civil fraud case, where Justice Engoron found both of their testimony to be completely not credible. Also, they are not experts in surety bonds. Also, surprise, surprise, Donald Trump is lying and claiming that this is somehow very unprecedented. As New York Attorney General Letitia James points out, there have been other bonds of this size, and she cites numerous other cases involving companies with real assets, real companies that have been able to post billion-dollar bonds. And New York Attorney General Letitia James also points out that Trump hasn't provided any evidence or info, not a scintilla of it, regarding what steps he took to secure a surety bond. Did he try to have a syndicate of sureties joined together? What properties did he pledge? You have to have specific details. You can't just say, oops, I'm not able to do it, Judge, and then have declarations by two non-credible people who are not actually experts on the issue of sureties. So we will keep you posted when we learn more there. Also, in the New York Attorney General civil fraud case, Justice Arthur Engoron issued an order regarding the independent financial monitor. Retired federal judge Barbara Jones, she now has received enhanced powers. One of the big enhancements is any type of transaction that Donald Trump's going to do at all with third parties, she gets to review those records before those are turned over to third parties. You know, basically an enhanced babysitter role over the Trump organization. And she's also permitted to very quickly go to Justice Engoron if she finds that any fraud is being committed or any other improprieties that are taking place. Finally, earlier in the week, Donald Trump filed a frivolous lawsuit against George Stephanopoulos and ABC. We previously reported how Stephanopoulos over the weekend in an interview, or I believe it was back on March 8th, in an interview with Nancy Mace, asked her about supporting Donald Trump, who Stephanopoulos says was found liable for rape by a jury. And then Donald Trump is saying that he is that he was found liable for sexually assaulting, which is digital rape, not genital rape. And so that's why Donald Trump is saying Stephanopoulos defamed him, because Trump's saying he only sexually assaulted E. Jean Carroll as opposed to rape. Meanwhile, we've provided on multiple hot takes, so I don't need to do it now again, but multiple orders by federal judge Lewis Kaplan, who has said that Donald Trump's conduct constitutes rape. And he said it in multiple orders. So you have a federal judge who made that ruling in New York. Trump's lawsuit, in my view, is not only without merit, it is sanctionable, and yet it will be yet another case where Donald Trump is a plaintiff where he loses. What he's trying to do here, what a lot of these MAGA Republicans like to do here, it's always projection and confession. The valid lawsuits against them, they call lawfare, while they engage in the lawfare against other people. Because what Trump's trying to do here is to chill speech. He's trying to scare people into not calling him a rapist by filing a lawsuit like this. And he's hoping that people will be afraid, even if Trump ultimately loses this lawsuit. You know, he is basically fueling and funding these lawsuits, not with his own money, but with the money of his donors that he's grifting off of. And, you know, we're learning that when it comes to Trump's fundraising, we're talking about he's spending about, the fundraising is dismal. He spends more on legal fees than he's even taking in. His his political action committee, Save America, which is basically the one that's used to fund his legal fees, has requested like basically $60 million from one of Trump's other political action committees. So that signals that that money is likely going to all be used, the remainder of it, for his legal. And meanwhile, the RNC is already out there talking about doing joint fundraising with Donald Trump's political action committee, Save America, which does pay the legal bills to the tune of $60-70+ million. That's the one that pays for Melania's hair, Melania's makeup, Donald Trump's jet. Mr. and Mrs. Magadonia are funding Donald Trump, but we also know why, that Donald Trump does not have the cash that he claims that he did. Brett, let me just toss it to you right now for any kind of final thoughts.
I just want to hammer home that point that you said at the end, that the RNC already, under Lara Trump's co-chairship, they've already have a joint fundraising agreement with Donald Trump that directs the donations to Donald Trump's political action committee to pay his legal bills before the RNC gets a cut. Think about that as we're heading to this election year. Okay. Just, I want you to process the actual ramifications about that as we're heading into this election year. You guys see this quote from Biden, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. So Biden was at a fundraiser in Dallas, Texas, and he told this story. He goes, so he talks about a man who approached him who was burdened with debt. And he was just talking about all that he did to relieve student debt for Americans. And by the way, even just today, the Biden administration announced announced that they were going to forgive another $5.8 billion in student debt for nearly 78,000 public service workers. These 78,000 eligible public service workers are like teachers, nurses, firefighters, borrowers who've been making loan payments, working in public service for at least 10 years are going to begin receiving emails next week congratulating them on having their debt forgiven. So if that's you, keep a lookout for those emails. There's been a lot of student debt forgiveness. So the administration's approved $143.6 billion in student debt cancellation for nearly 4 million Americans. And that's despite the Supreme Court kind of quashing Biden's broader plan to issue kind of a more blanket student debt relief. But getting back to my point, Biden was touting his accomplishments on the student debt relief front. And he starts telling the story. He goes, so a man approached me who was burdened with debt. Here's what he said. This is a quote. Just yesterday, a defeated looking man came up to me and said, I'm being crushed by debt. I'm completely wiped out. President Biden took a quick beat and then he told the crowd his response. Sorry, Donald, I can't help you. And the entire room erupted in laughter and applause. And I like to see President Biden out there throwing these punches. This is the best way to take down autocrats, wannabe autocrats, whiny people like Donald Trump. He cannot tolerate the mockery whatsoever. There's another comment. I think this was from today in Houston at another fundraiser. President Biden was talking about, he goes, remember when Trump said inject bleach? I think he must have done it. He must have actually done it. You got Biden throwing these punches. You know, it's great to see. And this cash disparity right now between the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign. And as you see the Trump campaign just pouring all their money into legal fees and the Biden campaign barely even spending so far as they're going around to all of these swing states, right? We saw this new press release from the Biden campaign that came out. They called him Broke Don. Not a winning campaign. Broke Don hides in basement. Flipping the script here on Donald Trump. The subtitle says Trump can't raise money, isn't campaigning, and is letting convicts and conspiracy theorists run his campaign. And then they go through a litany of facts about Donald Trump's lack of funding, his embrace of January 6th insurrectionists, his embrace of bringing on convicts and felons to his campaign. And it's real damning stuff. And one of the things I realized too, as we see Donald Trump, you know, kind of do these rallies. We show clips from these rallies, right? Donald Trump is not really going to that many states at this point. Since Super Tuesday, he held just one rally, one in a battleground state. And in the same time period, he shifted another to Ohio to save costs. They were going to do a rally in Arizona. They didn't have the money to do it. So they ended up shifting it to Ohio. They held their rally there. Meanwhile, Biden has visited Wisconsin 6 times since 2022. Biden has visited every swing state since Super Tuesday. Biden's hitting the campaign trail day in and day out, connecting with these voters. And I think one of the other things also is, you know, the Trumpers like to go, oh, well, look at the crowd at that rally. I don't see rallies like this for Joe Biden. I don't see people with Biden's 6-pack flags. And yeah, because it's weird. That's weird stuff. Like Joe Biden doesn't do that. Like that's not what happens in normal democracies. And I think what you start to realize when you look at it, this is kind of my analysis of the playing field here, is President Biden, when he goes into Wisconsin, when he goes into Michigan, when he goes to Arizona, he's speaking with persuadable voters. He's speaking with workers, right? He's speaking with union workers. He's speaking with nurses, with doctors, with teachers. He's speaking with people who have concerns and want to be listened to and want to be told, here's how I plan to solve this issue for you. Donald Trump at his rallies is speaking with cultists. He's not speaking with anybody who he's going to have to win over. He's speaking to his base, and he's not expanding the base. When he goes there, he's not talking about policy issues. He's speaking about freeing the January 6th insurrectionists and calling them patriots. So Donald Trump this entire time continues to shrink his base, while President Biden continues to reach out to all Americans, whether they're progressive, whether they consider themselves Republicans, former Republicans, independents, Democrats, whatever it is. And I think that strategy, it's a similar strategy, you know, what we saw in 2020. It's playing out right here again. But Donald Trump has only gotten crazier and crazier in the time since then. So like that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot more of it. We're going to see the Biden campaign, who has something like $155 million of cash on hand, continue to deploy that cash with powerful ads around the country about President Biden's agenda. Meanwhile, you have Donald Trump literally recycling ads from 2020 because they can't afford to cut new ones. Like that's literally something that is happening right now. So you're going to see a lot of shifts. I mean, as the message gets out, and that's why we've been saying this now for months and months and months. The data now is bearing that out in the polling or whatever you want to see. But this disparity is only going to grow. I'm pretty sure of it. And the things are going to continue to get better. People are going to continue to wake up about the economy, which has great metrics, but hasn't necessarily been felt by people. We're already seeing this new polling come out of that majority of Americans now are saying that we're in a good economy and not in a recession, as opposed to last year when people thought the opposite. So things are shifting. There's a big shift. As we say, there's a lot of Joe-mentum heading into Joe-vember, and that's what's up.
No, absolutely. You just think about it too. I gave the example of the Clippers game. That's kind of archaic and very personal.
No,
but like, if you just
really
thought, but also like if you thought like a horse race and they're off and it's over, like you gotta like let's actually watch the race take place, and where you want the horse to take off, where you have to pace, all of that is something to consider. I want to give one more shout out to all of the YouTube channels that we're partnered with as we're trying to help grow those channels as well. Tennessee Brando, make sure you subscribe on YouTube to the Tennessee Brando channel. He's on his way to 200,000 subs, like my horse race analysis. Then you've got Adam Mockler is on his way to 100,000, the Gen Z MeidasTouch Network host right there. Help Adam Mockler get to 100,000 subs this evening. And our new channel, True Crime MTN. It's just going to be the whole point of True Crime MTN is not going to impact this channel at all. I just want to be very clear. We're going to keep building all of our pro-democracy channels out there. Just sometimes you may want to hear a hot take about the Alec Baldwin trial or some of the other cases that are happening. I'm obviously not going to put that on this channel. So our thought is create True Crime MTN, have it be led by a distinguished scholar. What a lawyer to run it. I mean, David Arenberg. Could you think of a better person to do that with than David Arenberg? So subscribed right now to True Crime MTN. Let's get that channel to 25,000 subs and start checking in each day as we start uploading new content there. And then finally, I want to talk about a new movie that we are executive producers at here at the MeidasTouch Network. You all know Ken Harba, who does a lot of the shows here at the MeidasTouch Network. You've seen his shows. You've seen his content. He and I have become great friends over the past 2 years. And so he and a group of others started this idea of let's doing the movie Against All Enemies. And they asked us at the MeidasTouch Network to become an executive producer. So we are now official executive producers there. We can add that to our list of credits, just like we all worked on Killing County on ABC, which I hope you all liked. And make sure you check it on ABC Hulu. Now we've got Against All Enemies. So I'm so thrilled to share with you this promo right here exclusively on the MeidasTouch Network, Against All Enemies, executive produced by MeidasTouch. Let's play it.
3, 2, 1.
Today, domestic terrorism is the greatest terrorist threat facing the United States.
I hope that people are f***ing scared, because being scared motivates people.
This is how countries fall apart.
Oh my God!
I could see a civil war.
If you're not armed, you're dog meat.
And this fight that's far from over, and it may never be over.
We'll be giving you more details on Against All Enemies, but you are going to absolutely...
Well, let me give a little more details, because I think folks should know a little bit more. The film goes deep inside the radical extremist groups that threaten our democracy. It's a lot of the topics we speak about each and every day. And of course, the politicians who enable them. It has never before seen footage from some of the most consequential events of the past few years, including never before seen footage of the Oath Keepers. This movie has been an absolute smash hit internationally. It has won a ton of awards. It's been already translated into French and German and is already playing on broadcast TV across of Europe. But of course, the most important audience is you right here in the USA, you, the Meidas Mighty, during the most critical election of our lifetime. So Meidas Mighty, I'm just saying, we need your help to make this a smash here. So here's how you could watch it, okay? You watch the film on Amazon or Apple TV starting March 29th. So go ahead, put it in your calendar right now. March 29th, Amazon or Apple TV. Then once it's out, you could leave a review, tell your friends about it, share it. I've seen the movie. It gives me the absolute chills there. It's such a powerhouse of talent also in this documentary. And let's keep doing our part, folks, to defend democracy. You could also, if you want to learn more about it, like the second, you could go to againstallenemiesfilm.com for more. Againstallenemiesfilm.com. This movie is going to blow your mind. It's so important. Check it out.
I had so much fun with all the Meidas Mighty out there today. Thank you so much for watching this, and thank you for all your support at the MeidasTouch Network. Our after show is patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Go there. You could also subscribe to our newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter. We're going to do an after show after the show. Next week, we're going to do a live Zoom meeting. So if you ever wanted to meet me, Brett, and Jordy and do a Zoom meeting, make sure you subscribe to patreon.com/MeidasTouch now, so that you can sign up for the exclusive Zoom meeting with us. I can't wait to meet you all. So go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We do that next week. Folks, such an honor to be here with you, fighting for our democracy each and every day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty!
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstallenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well.